Today we take a little road trip to find one of the rarest birds in Florida.
I just found our flamingo. All right, so here we go. This is the plan to go and find my very first flamingo. Now that sounds pretty crazy. So this is gonna be a little bit of a vlog and a wildlife video because this is all about finding my first flamingo in Florida, finding maybe your first flamingo in Florida. So here's the plan. I'm going to be driving up to Tallahassee tonight from Central Florida, and I'm going to be spending the night near St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, which is where this flamingo's been spotted. You can see I've already got the back of my Kia all loaded up with a bed and a cooler and a few other supplies just to last me the night. Camp there, get up at the crack of dawn in the morning, and let's go find this flamingo. It's going to be about a 4-hour drive from where I live in Central Florida all the way up to Tallahassee, and I'm sure it'll just fly by. So, I've made it to a small town just outside Tallahassee, and it's going to be here that I'm going to be spending the night so I can get up at the crack of dawn in the morning and find this flamingo. I'm just camping in my car in a Walmart parking lot. You can see I've got my little camping set up here and got all the windows and stuff blocked off in my SUV. So I can camp here and we'll get up in the morning and see if we can find this flamingo. Welcome to the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge near Tallahassee, Florida. This pool is where the flamingo's been most consistently sighted over the last few weeks, and we're gonna spend the next hour here and hopefully get a chance to see it too. As you can see, it's pretty foggy out because it's still pretty early in the morning, and we're gonna hang out here for the next hour and hopefully get a chance to see our flamingo. Now the sun is finally coming out, and that'll hopefully clear up this fog, but as the temperature warms up, it also brings out the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums, and I am getting absolutely swarmed right now, even if you can't see the no-see-ums on camera. So hopefully we'll get our flamingo sooner than later. There are no-see-ums just all over me right now. I don't even know if the camera picks them up, but they're landing just all over me. It's awful, and I have bug spray on too. It's not like I didn't try to protect myself against this. This is awful. They are just completely covering me. I'm breathing them in. They're biting me. Oh, it's pretty bad, and I really hope this flamingo shows up soon so I can get out of this because it is awful. Sure enough, as soon as I packed up my stuff and tried a different spot, I decided to move down a little bit, and of course I walk 5 minutes down and I just found it. I just found our flamingo. So we did it, guys. We found the flamingo. It's right out here in the middle of the pond. It's pretty far away, and I've got the big camera recording it. And so I think the way that I'm gonna kind of set this up is that I'll be taking some pictures with the big lens here, and I'll be putting the photos up, and then I'll be talking to you on the GoPro, and you'll also be seeing the flamingo at a distance. Now this is an American flamingo, and American flamingos are found throughout the northern half of South America, all throughout the Caribbean, and a few places in Mexico, as well as the Everglades and Florida Bay. And that's where it's thought that flamingos are normally found. But we're in the Panhandle up by Tallahassee. We're pretty far north out of this animal's range. And that's because this flamingo has somewhat of a special story. This flamingo's been named locally Pinky, and Pinky first showed up in 2018 after a really nasty hurricane that hit the Panhandle of Florida. And suddenly people were like, hey, there's a wild flamingo out in the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge. So people started coming by the dozens to come and see this animal because it's such a not only rare bird in Florida, but especially rare for this area as well. So a lot of people were coming to check out this animal and see this bird for the first time in their lives. And that was really exciting for everyone, especially for the people that ran St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, because this bird essentially made them an awesome tourist destination as well, which is pretty cool. Now they needed to figure out where Pinky came from, and the leading idea was maybe it's an escaped zoo animal. But they looked closer at Pinky and they realized Pinky didn't have any banding on any of its legs, so they weren't sure if it was a zoo animal. Few calls to a few zoos within a couple 100 miles of St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, and they confirmed it. Nobody was missing any flamingos, so they're pretty sure Pinky is a wild flamingo. Now in 2019, Pinky eventually migrated away from St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, probably rejoining its flock somewhere down near the Caribbean. But in October of 2020, Pinky showed back up at the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge. Now right now it's January 2021, and Pinky is still here in plain sight. You just have to come find her, even if it takes walking a little bit and getting bit by a few mosquitoes. I remember being shown a tourism book about Florida in 2012, and the front cover of this tourism book said, "Florida, show your kids where flamingos come from." And I had a good laugh about that at the time because, as we thought, flamingos aren't really found in Florida. We knew that flamingos used to be found in Florida up until the late 1800s, but that's whenever plume hunting became a very popular hobby and very lucrative for those hunters. Plume hunting is where a hunter goes out and kills a specific kind of bird, so that way their feathers can be used in all sorts of luxury goods, especially hats at the time. Both flamingos and roseate spoonbills, which are the two pink birds you can find in Florida, were hunted nearly to extinction. In fact, it was thought that flamingos were pretty much completely wiped out, but occasionally people would spot flamingos in the Everglades and in Florida Bay, or sometimes around the Keys. And it was thought that those were just vagrant birds. Those were ones that had been blown off course as they were migrating through the Caribbean. Those birds don't really live in Florida. But until they tagged a flamingo named Conchy down in the Florida Keys, they found that this flamingo stayed year-round in Florida Bay, making it a native flamingo. And to this day, they're still tracking that bird every now and again whenever they see him down in the Everglades. Whenever it came time to actually scientifically name the flamingos, and there's 6 different kinds of flamingos found around the world, but whenever it came time to actually give them a taxonomic name, there was one name that seemed just too appropriate for the entire genus of flamingos, and that is Phoenicopterus, after the phoenix, because of the flamingo's brilliant pink flame colors. Now, flamingos get that color from 2 different sources. They get it from the brine shrimp that they eat, and they also get it from the algae that they eat. Now, those 2 things carry a protein in them called beta-carotene, and that compound is actually what gives them their pink color. When flamingos are first born, they are gray, completely gray, and as they age, they start turning pink from the beta-carotene building up in their feathers. Now, if you've seen my episode of On the Hook with blue-footed boobies, you'd also know that blue-footed boobies and roseate spoonbills, which are another Florida bird we'll hopefully cover in a future Wild Florida episode, also get their blue and pink colors from the beta-carotenes that are in the food that they eat. Now, beta-carotene and their pink colors that it gives the flamingos provide something really important when it comes time to find a mate, and that is that it actively signals the animal's health and tells a potential partner, hey, I'm really healthy, I'm having an easy time finding all the food that I need to survive, I would be good at taking care of a chick with you. Flamingos have some really bizarre mating habits. It's thought that flamingos mate for life, and in some cases they do, but of course, not being able to track them 100% of the time, you don't know for sure. Now, they also exhibit some other interesting mating behaviors. Sometimes they can have more than one partner. There might be a group of 2 males with 1 female, or 2 females with 1 male, or sometimes there's 2 males and 2 females, and all of these birds are sharing the same nest. And they have all sorts of different behaviors depending on the situation. If you have 2 males and a female, there's a dominant male and a subordinate male. The subordinate male is the one who takes care of the chick in the nest, while the dominant male and female go out and go catch food to bring back to the nest to make sure that their chick stays fed. If there's 2 females and 1 male, there is a dominant female and a subordinate female. Now, both of them will try to lay an egg in the nest, and whichever one can destroy the other's egg first is the egg that gets to survive, and then they all take turns raising that chick. If there's a group of 2 males and 2 females, all of which share the same nest, then it could be anybody's egg. And they're not sure, but they all work together to take care of their chicks, which is a really cool way that these animals have adapted to living communally with one another. When it comes to building their nests, flamingos like big, flat, muddy areas, and they'll build their nests out of mud, raising them up out of the ground a little bit, just making them out of mud, and that helps keep the chick a little bit cooler so they don't overheat when they're still in the egg or whenever they finally hatch out. When it's time to start feeding, instead of regurgitating food like what you think most birds do, instead flamingos have an organ called a crop that's down in their stomach, and it produces a sort of fluid that's called crop milk. It's not any milk you'd want to drink. It's typically made up of just algae and partially digested brine shrimp that they eat, but it is easy and simple enough for the baby flamingo, for the flamingo chick, to digest. Flamingos have a very distinct way of feeding. Their bill is actually used upside down and has little tiny filaments on it called lamellae, and they use those to either kind of skim the surface of water almost like they're a vacuum, or to stir up sediments that might have brine shrimp or algae that they eat in them off of the bottom. And you can see Pinky right now feeding exactly like that. There's another behavior that's really distinct among flamingos, and that is that they stand on one leg. And we're not entirely sure why flamingos do this. The leading theory is that it helps them stay cool, or it helps them retain heat. Now, flamingos are considered shorebirds, which means they're typically found near or in salt water. And this here is a salt marsh, so this makes sense for Pinky to be hanging out here. Their closest living relatives is a small bird called a grebe that you can find pretty much anywhere in Florida. We have a pie-billed grebe, and occasionally we get visited by migratory horned grebes as well. If you're into birding, and I would absolutely suggest if you like nature to try birding sometime, going out and looking at the diversity of birds that are around, you'll undoubtedly see a pie-billed grebe or a horned grebe wherever you go birding if you're near the water. Now, these are largely migratory birds, and it's thought that flamingos are just visiting Florida, but we're starting to see more and more that they're inhabiting more and more different areas. We're finally seeing flamingos coming back to Florida after being historically present, and it's taken about 150 years for these animals to start making their way back into different areas. Now, if you want to check out an animal like this, you can come visit St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge. You do have to hike a little bit, but there's tons of other wildlife out here. Bobcats, there's a deer that I saw swimming out in the pond while I was looking for the flamingo, and so many different bird species. There's some ducks hanging out with the flamingo right now. It's so cool. Now, if you want to actually see a flamingo for yourself, assuming that Pinky is no longer within the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, your best chance is to see them down in the Everglades, Florida Bay if you have a boat, or down around the Florida Keys, assuming that you're in Florida. If you're able to go to the Bahamas or Cuba or the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, or even a few spots in South America, you'd have a very likely chance of seeing American flamingos there as well. So, I'm Zak Attack. This is the American flamingo, and thanks for checking out what makes Florida so wild. As a photographer, as a videographer, and as a general fan of wildlife, this is a really cool opportunity for me to bring a really rare and interesting animal right to you. And this video was made possible through one of our stretch goals that we had on our Kickstarter that ended in January. And if it wasn't for the support of my backers, I wouldn't be able to bring this episode of Wild Florida to you. So I just wanted to say to my backers on the Kickstarter, thank you once again, and thank you for watching.